Central Virginia. Are you ready to rumble? Fasten your safety belt and hold on tight. The community watchdog is in the house. This is the Schilling Show with your host, former city councilor Rob Schilling on News Radio 1070 WINA.
A very controversial hour ahead, and if you're easily upset, if you happen to be intolerant of other people's ideas, if you have children in the listening audience who are not up to speed on some of these issues, I would ask you to please use discretion in listening to this hour of the Schilling Show. And, you know, we don't shy away from issues. There are some hosts, even Neil Bortz, oh, don't mention abortion on my show. You know what? We could have mentioned it here all we want. We could talk about it every single day if somebody wanted to do that. Because until we admit what the right to choose is actually talking about choosing, we're in trouble in this country. And you hear people throwing this term around, oh, I support a woman's right to choose. Well, what are you actually choosing to do? Well, it's the dismemberment of a child in the womb. All right, let's just put that on the table. And there's really no two ways about it. But people don't want to talk about it like that. But it's time to be honest. I'm pleased to welcome to the Schilling Show, Sean Cannan joins us. And he is a University of Wisconsin, a Madison alumnus, also a 2011 graduate for a second degree at PVCC. He's been on the program before sharing his own story and has been a friend of life in this community, especially in dealing with the University of Virginia, calling them out on something that they just didn't want to talk about for a long time, and that was abortion that was taking place at the University of Virginia Medical Center. And I say, whatever became of the Hippocratic Oath? Sean Cannan, thank you for joining us today on the Schilling Show.
Thanks for having me back on.
All right, so a lot has happened since we've talked, and of course you have been a man on a mission. You haven't been alone. There's been a lot of people helping you out, a lot of people cheering you on. But why don't we set the stage? What has been going on, and what information have you tried to get from the University of Virginia regarding what's happening there at the medical center?
Well, for the sake of your listeners who maybe are not aware of what's been going on this past year, myself and Kelsey Hazard, co-author, we delivered the Human Rights and Scientific Honesty Initiative to the hospital, to student health, and to President Sullivan's office back on February 15th. Thereafter, they did try and ignore us for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And any of you out there who want to look it up, it's very simple. If you go to Google, we're getting enough traffic now where if you just look up Human Rights Scientific Honesty, we will be right at the top there, and you'll be able to read I believe it's a 4.5-page document.
Mm-hmm.
The University of Virginia did respond to us. You had me and Kelsey on here, I guess that was back in March.
Yeah, a few months back.
And they did respond to us. They dismissed most of our claims, thinking they can just do that. But, you know, it was a call actually from State Senator Puckett's office, a Democrat, mind
Mm-hmm.
you, that got them off, out of their chairs. And the most recent development, I think what they did is they sat back with their lawyers, and I think they finally came to an epiphany of sorts where they said, well, we do have some things here where they can really come after us legally in terms of medical misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've done is the good news here is that towards the end of May, beginning of June, they took down their entire student health web presence. Every single page that we referred to in our document is now a dead link. So they blinked, they buckled, and they cried uncle on a few things. That's the good news.
Okay. We're talking with Sean Cannan about the University of Virginia Medical Center, life, abortion, Planned Parenthood, death, and all of the things in between. 977-1070 is the phone number. And we welcome your calls, your comments, your challenges, your questions, particularly your challenges. If you think we're way off base and you'd love to challenge us, you think that performing abortions at the University of Virginia Medical Center is terrific, you think referrals to Planned Parenthood from the University of Virginia are good, we'd love to hear from you. 977-1070. Why do you care, Sean Cannan, about the unborn? And I think this is a very important question because many people don't. but maybe if they thought about why other people do, they would as well. Why is this important to you?
Well, we all know why Planned Parenthood is in business.
Mm-hmm.
But, a few years ago, after, some personal things that happened to me in my life, I got interested in the topic of, once I found out, it was like, and I found out for some rather personal reasons, it was like, how is it that a publicly funded university could be involved in this? And how is this, how is this even possible? First of all, they never advertised it, but they just did it quietly. That's one of the things that we've made that impossible for them to do now. They can no longer sit back and say, well, what are you talking about? They've had to publicly come out and admit to it at this point. That's one of the good things that we've been able to do. But it's not just the abortion issue. If you look deeper, if you look beyond even that veneer, there is a systematic, deliberate policy, and it's not just at UVA, it's at a number of different schools, of medical misinformation. There is a deliberate attempt to keep certain facts, be it the preterm birth link to abortion, or oral contraceptives causing breast cancer, and several other things. I believe we pointed out 14 different things in our initiative.
Mm-hmm.
There's a deliberate policy, which is just mind-boggling, where they decide, you know what? We don't want our students to know about certain facts regarding healthcare, and our political ideology as a college is more important to us than giving our own students a complete, honest appraisal of healthcare risks. And that's really the big story. Yes, it's also the question of whether or not a publicly funded university should be doing abortions in-house to begin with. There's already 2 abortion facilities in Charlottesville. But it's also the medical misinformation stuff that you just have to ask yourself, even especially now that they've been challenged and they've blinked, why is this so important to them? And why do they continue to do it?
I think that is a terrific question, and it's one that I would like the listening audience to ponder while we're on the break here. Why is it so important to the University of Virginia that they are performing abortions? I believe it's a political agenda by the underlings there. I don't know if it's coming from the top, but certainly the people who are in control of some of these various sub-areas have a tremendous political agenda. It's very obvious if you look at their website and some of the places that they're referring people to on the topics of sexuality, pregnancy, abortion, etc. Sean Cannan is our guest. We will take your calls when the Schilling Show returns after the news. It's 977-1070. You're with the Schilling Show on WINA. A controversial hour, one that's probably not well suited to people who don't have a strong constitution for the discussion of abortion and these related issues, the University of Virginia, life, abortion, Planned Parenthood, and everything in between. Sean Cannan joins us here in studio. And, of course, if you have kids in the listening audience, I want you to be very careful because we're going to be speaking about these issues for the next 30 minutes. So please take that into consideration. 977-1070 is the phone number. Comments, questions, particularly challenges, we would love to hear from you at 977-1070. Give us a challenge if it's on your mind, 977-1070. So, Sean, there were 3 things that the university did admit to after you brought these to their attention, and let's talk about the 3 things.
Yeah, this is the good news. First of all, after doing 2,600 plus abortions in their own hospital the last 20 years, about a month ago, they finally, publicly, came out and said, yes, we do this.
They had never done this over all of those years and all of those abortions.
There isn't any public statement or any literature that we're aware of where they ever came out publicly and said, we're going to do this. It was sort of a private thing between them and their students.
So how was it that this even came to light, that you knew or anybody else knew this was going on if they never mentioned it?
I have some friends, obviously, down at the pregnancy center who informed me and some of the other people who wrote the initiative and endorsed it. We found out about that a few years ago. And I was, I had already lived here for a few years, and I was pretty surprised to learn.
Well, as a taxpayer, and
Yeah,
when you brought this
yeah.
to my attention, I wasn't happy about it either. And by the way, there is a link right now on shillingshow.com on the show notes page called Correcting Untruths About Abortion and Contraception at UVA. We've posted a link to that. It's a very interesting page with some interesting information. So, number one, you have gotten them to admit that they are performing abortions. It's the very first question on this page. Are abortions performed at the medical center? Answer yes, and then blah, blah, blah.
Right. And we do have now, excuse me, we have the 2010 numbers in. They did 57 of them in 2010. So they're doing at least one a week.
Wow. It makes me sick on a number of levels.
They
to
did
think of
71 in 2009, I believe. So that is, if those numbers are honest.
And these are numbers that came from them?
Yeah, Virginia Department of Health makes them. You will recall the last time I was on here that the VDH was not happy about separating the numbers for UVA out or MCV, the VCU hospital. But now they do it as a matter of fact. So I don't have to go to them now and wave FOIA in front of them and do any of that anymore.
Okay, so that's number one. They admitted that this is taking place, that they're killing the unborn at the University of Virginia. Number two.
They responding to a challenge from us, they will no longer just hand out the morning after pills like they're candy to 13-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
They were just there was an article in Civil Weekly, I think back in 2008, where they just says, well, if anyone wants this, just come by and get it for free at the teen center, down by the university. And now they have admitted that they really can't legally do that. Mm-hmm. So what they're going to do now is they're going to give them only still for free, to 17-year-olds and up. But strangely enough, and this is just one of their mind-boggling decisions, they're still going to give them to men. As if a guy needs the morning after pills to do anything with them other than maybe put it in somebody's drink.
Well, I've got to ask you a question here. Is this prescription medication? It's not over the counter, right?
No, it's available over the counter now.
The morning after pill is available over the counter.
Right. That was an unfortunate decision by the FDA, which was very politically motivated. I think that goes back to 06 or 07.
It sounds insane to me. 977-1070 is the phone number. I ask you to put your headphones on because we've got a caller and a line open for you at 977-1070. Sean Cannan is our guest. We're talking about the University of Virginia, life, abortion, death, and Planned Parenthood. Jerome, thanks so much for joining us on the Schilling Show. You're on with Sean Cannan.
Hi, sure. I have no particular agenda, but I have just some questions, two questions I'm curious about, and I bet you all know. One is about UVA and the abortions they're doing. My question there is specifically for student health services. Are those students we're talking about, or is that the community at large? I'd be really interested in that. That's one question.
Okay, let's let him answer. Hold your second question. Let's let him answer that one first. We'll get to question number two.
Okay, sure.
Well, since they haven't really publicly made the procedure publicly, they haven't come out and said we do these. They don't advertise it. It's not anywhere in any parent handbook or anything like that. Obviously, you can make the presumption from there that it's primarily or exclusively for their own students. It was an internal thing. It was a word-of-mouth thing. You can have this done here. But they never came out and, put an ad in the paper and say, hey, come get your abortion here. So, yeah, we can safely presume it's primarily for UVA students.
Yeah, that seems sort of depressing, actually. My other question is, with Planned Parenthood, is there any sense of in terms of their entire clientele, what percentage is there for abortion services? What percentage is there for whatever else they're offering? Do you feel they have any legitimate use in the community?
Well,
set the whole abortion issue aside.
Well, contrary to their public claims that abortion is only 3% of their business, it's actually 36.7% of their business if we do it in terms of income. Because what they'll do, the way they come with that 3% number is they say, well, if we hand a condom out, that's the same as an abortion procedure. Whereas, they might give away the condom for free or maybe charge 25 cents for it. But the $450 abortion, they'll count the same. So it's kind of like my friend Lila Rose in Live Action on their website explained this very well, saying that Planned Parenthood only does only 3% of their business is abortion. That's like saying that Boeing's business is only 3% selling airplanes, because they sell a lot of nuts and bolts also.
Mm-hmm. But can you see them existing and being something to contribute to the community if they were not doing abortion?
Well,
they're doing everything else they did, but not doing abortion.
It's difficult to imagine them staying in business if they didn't do that, because what they do obviously provide other healthcare services, pap smears and so on. They don't provide mammograms. They said they did, and they don't. But the reason they're able to offer cheaper healthcare services for a lot of women is that they make so much money doing abortions.
That's their moneymaker.
Yeah. So, I mean, one way or the other, if you're going to Planned Parenthood, even if you're going there because you want to get, a pap smear or something that's cheaper than you can get it somewhere else, you got to think, okay, how are they able to offer this any cheaper? And we all know what that is.
All righty. Thanks for the info. I'm enjoying the talk.
Yeah, Jerome, thanks so much for the call. Please call us again. That leaves a line open for you at 977-1070. Leon stands by. We welcome all takers here on the Schilling Show. Challenges, questions, comments, 977-1070. Let's go to the break, and we'll come back for a final segment with Sean Cannan on the University of Virginia life, death, abortion, and Planned Parenthood, exclusively here on the Schilling Show on WINA. 977-1070, the phone number here on the Schilling Show. If you're listening live online from out of the area, it's 434-977-1070. We welcome your point of view. Sean Cannan is our guest. We're talking about abortions at the University of Virginia Medical Center. Just amazing that our tax dollars are going toward this. Chris is on the line. Chris, welcome to the Schilling Show. You're on with Sean Cannan.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate you taking my call. I was wondering, John, I see your work as very, very important. I did a little bit of research and reading over the past 6 months about abortion in our history as a Western civilization. I found that the Romans, not only did they set their children out in the night if they were unwanted to be taken by wild animals, they also did abortions in utero through drugs and also with medical instruments. So they were able to perform abortions much in the way that we do now. And I'm a Christian man. I try to follow Christ. And when I see what the Christians did back in Roman times and how they expelled this practice from civilization, I found it was phenomenal that they just called the leaders of the Roman Empire murderers because of the way they treated their children, and they adopted the Roman children rather than having them taken in the night. And now I found that I think it's Finland was the first Western country to start abortions again back in, I think it was the mid-'50s or late '50s. And I see this as not progressive at all. I see it as regressing back to the ancient times, before the Christians had their influence. And I applaud you for what you're doing. And when we can keep abortion quiet and keep it out of the public eye, it's almost like it's not happening. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to give this facade that this is not really happening, because they can't come out in the open and say, okay, all you university students that get pregnant while you're here, just come on out. They're not advertising this stuff down in the corner.
Let's get a response real quickly because we just have a little bit of time left. Sean, go right ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. And going back in history a little bit, it was actually before the 50s. Adolf Hitler brought elective abortions. He thought they were a great idea for people in the Eastern Territories. So thus you saw abortion legalized in Poland in 1943. That's neither here nor there for this discussion, but you did bring up the history thing. And yeah, Joseph Mengele, the doctor at Auschwitz, he spent the rest of his career doing abortions in Argentina.
Wow.
And got arrested for it.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
977-1070 is the phone number. Chris, thanks so much for the call. Let's go to bullet point number 3, which is the tie between preterm birth and abortion.
As we said, as me and Kelsey Hazard said on your program a few months ago, this was in our initiative that we wrote. This was the one that we really pounded them on, because this is probably the most heinous example of medical misinformation that UVA has been engaging in the last 20 years. It's nowhere to be found on their consent forms when someone gets an abortion. But you'll notice in that document there that finally, and only because they were pressured and that they knew their legal vulnerabilities here, they finally have cried uncle on that one. And they've said, okay, yeah, it happens. Getting an abortion will compromise your cervix. Cervix, its job is to slam shut and protect a pregnancy. And they've got to go in there and get the child. So what happens is you end up with a compromised cervix, and you're more susceptible to infection thereafter as well. So UVA has finally cried uncle on that one, and that was the biggest thing that we've achieved is we've made them admit to that. The problem is in their response, and with all the web pages they've put up for their new incoming first years, they still don't mention it. So, Mo, Larry, and Curly could have done a better job putting up a new healthcare information infrastructure online.
So they say here on this UVA Today quote unquote truth webpage that we have linked online at schillingshow.com on the show notes page, the question is, does having an abortion increase a woman's risk of subsequent preterm birth? And they start out by saying perhaps, although the scientific evidence is not yet compelling, surgical abortion may increase a woman's chance of having a subsequent preterm birth. The risk of preterm birth increases with the number of surgical abortions that a woman undergoes. And they claim that patients seeking abortions at the UVA Medical Center are informed about this risk. And yet you said that it's not in their release papers?
You can see the abortion consent form online, and it's not there.
And it's not there.
And it's not in any of their new web pages. Some of the new web pages they've put up are, either hilarious or revolting, depending on how. Well, you've looked over a few of them, Rob.
Well, I have, and before we go, and we have only just a couple of minutes left with Sean Cannan, it's fascinating that they're linking out to certain things, like they're linking out to Planned Parenthood. What is it, 3 times on their resources page? They
realized how vulnerable they were legally, and what they've done, despite the fact that they have a major research teaching hospital and a large medical school, they no longer trust themselves to give their own students healthcare information. It's really quite remarkable. So what they've done is they decided, all right, we're gonna farm it out to third parties like Epigee, Planned Parenthood, and the Center for Positive Sexuality.
Yeah, and if anybody goes to that website, you're not going to believe what you see at the Coalition for Positive Sexuality. It's basically saying, hey, have sex with anybody you want in any way at any time. Don't let anybody say no. I'm looking at the front page now, and it says it's called Just Say Yes, because we're tired of people telling us what we can and can't do.
And even their abortion page, it begins with Just Say Yes.
And this is coming directly off the University of Virginia, okay? Directly off the University of Virginia on their webpage called Student Health Peer Resources.
The first-year students are going to be arriving in a few weeks. This is the stuff they're going to look at.
Yeah,
they're going to learn how to clean their needles. They're going to learn how to insert vegetables into someone's orifice. And they're going to learn that abortion is pretty much like getting a haircut. Just, get it as often as you want and don't worry about it.
Let's go to Madeline, who's on the line. And welcome to the Schilling Show. You're on with Sean Cannan.
Hi, thanks a lot. I am a nurse, and I am pro-choice. I am not pro-abortion. One of the things that irritates me...
Wait, let me ask you a question. You're pro-choice. What is the choice besides having the baby? What is the choice?
I think we need to leave it up to the woman.
No, what is the choice, though? What are people choosing to do?
They can choose not to have children or to have children.
No, it's not about not having children. And there's an affirmative choice that you're making here, because if you choose to not have children, then you just don't have sex. But if you're pregnant and you choose to not have children, what is the choice that you're acknowledging that someone is making? What are they actually doing?
Can I make the comment?
No, I want you to answer that question first, and then you can make your comment.
Answer it.
Yeah,
Because
answer
there
the
is
question. What is the choice that people are making? You say you're pro-choice. What is
I
the
don't-
choice?
I don't think we have the right to tell somebody what
No,
they
what
can
is
do
the
with
choice?
their body.
What is
if
the
a woman
choice?
is exposed
Madeline,
to a disease?
Madeline, what is the choice? What's the choice that you're advocating?
I'm not advocating it.
No, what is the choice?
What I'm saying is the pregnancy should be prevented.
What is the choice? If you can't say it, I will. It is the dismemberment of a child in the womb. It's a horrible thing. Why would you advocate that?
Why would I advocate what?
The dismemberment of a child in the womb. You can't even bring yourself to say what it is you're telling people they have a choice to do. It's dismemberment of a child in the womb.
The point that I'm trying to get across is that pregnancy could be prevented.
Wait a minute. I want you to acknowledge what I just said.
To acknowledge it.
I want you to acknowledge what I just said.
Bye.
Okay, let's go to Ken. Ken, welcome to the Schilling Show.
Hey, kid, appreciate the conversation. I just find it a little bit obnoxious when the conversation says we welcome all points of view. At least let the woman have her say in what she wants.
You know what? Don't tell me how to run the show, because when somebody calls in and says, I want to give people a choice, and I ask you, what choice are you doing, and you can't answer the question, then you are not entitled to go forward. I'd ask a simple question, and she wouldn't say what it was. She was acknowledging that she wanted people to have a choice. Now, let's let you have your say. Go right ahead.
No, all I was saying is I don't want to give my opinion on it. That's not what I'm here to do. I just think if you invite people to let them say their conversation, give them more than 7 seconds.
She could have as much time as she wants, and you could too. Do you have anything of substance you'd like to bring to the conversation?
Already did it. Thanks for
okay,
the call.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Sean Cannan, we're out of time, but you know what? It has been valuable time. Thank you for joining us here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And it's fascinating to me that people cannot bring themselves to utter what it is they're advocating for. I'm pro-choice. The answer is, what are you choosing to do? And I made it very, very clear what that is. She still wouldn't acknowledge it. And the other caller didn't want to acknowledge it either. Okay, we're out of here. We're coming back after the break. Stay with us on The Schilling Show.